everybody, and welcome to the 100 meditation tips. Today we're looking at dealing with boredom. Dealing with boredom. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so dealing with boredom when we are practicing meditation. How do we deal with that? How can we overcome the boredom which potentially arises? So one thing my mum used to say to me, a bored person is a boring person. You know, when you're little and you say to your mum, oh, I'm bored, this is something that she would always come out with. A bored person is a boring person. So I sometimes reflect on this, the meaning of this, and it's actually relevant to meditation practice in the sense, and the way to combat boredom when it arises is to approach it like any other distraction. So if we're sitting and practicing, maybe we've set ourselves 45 minutes or half an hour, whatever, to practice, we're sitting there. 3 minutes in, we look down at the timer and we've still got all this time left, and it just seems like time is dragging, nothing's happening. You just get this sense of boredom, sort of resistance to stay focused. We'd much rather be surfing the net or going and having our breakfast or whatever. At that time, we're trying to approach the boredom like other distractions, saying this is actually a distraction. Boredom arises and dissolves. If we listen to boredom and maybe stop practicing or agree with it, then we've kind of been defeated by it. And we're sitting there and boredom arises. It's like, one analogy to help with distractions is that they're like waves. Whether the distraction is thinking about what we're going to have for breakfast, or thinking about what we're going to do during the day, or thinking about what someone said to us yesterday, or feeling bored, it's still a distraction, and we can still put it in that, in that group. This is a distraction, so it's a wave. So the boredom wasn't always there. So the boredom arises like a wave. Waves come, and eventually they break. And our distractions are the same. It's like any thought, even a mind of anger, it comes, but you can't remain and stay angry. Eventually it breaks. It's the same with boredom. One temporary solution to boredom, of course, is to stop what we're doing and do something more interesting. But often, eventually, if we do that thing that we find more interesting, we become bored with that and look for something else, and then look for something else. We go from one thing to another, flit from one thing to another, meaning we never get any depth. If you really want to get some depth and experience in your meditation practice, then you have to break through the barrier, the boredom barrier, and it comes in many different ways. Both during a daily practice and also in retreat, it comes up. So, one of the ways it manifests in retreat is that you're sitting and you're bored with actually doing whatever the practice it is that you're engaged in, and the mind takes you on a stream of consciousness about a memory or something that's happened in the past, or a plan for something for the future. Try and combat the sort of the boredom that's arising from being engaged with the practice. But if we can actually look at that boredom, observe it, let it come, almost like surf the wave of it, stay with it. We're not resisting it. We're not saying this boredom is good, this boredom is bad. We're just, oh look, there's some boredom in my mind. Let it come, and then eventually it will break and we'll move on. It's like we've broken through that barrier, we've surfed that wave, and we've gone over it and made progress. So it's actually, when boredom arises in our mind with respect to our practice, it's not a bad sign. It's a sign that we're starting to make progress. But then the question is, how can we deal with it? And if we can approach it objectively, with kind of humour, with openness, we can solve that, overcome that distraction, and then move on. Okay, so that's a little tip about dealing with boredom in our meditation practice. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you for the next meditation clip. Bye for now.